Today I'm challenging myself to create 5 fun fold cards using one simple cut. I also have this French toile paper pack as well as the Teacups and Petals ephemera pack from the Not Too Shabby shop, and I received this as part of my design team package and I hadn't used it yet, so I thought it would be fun for these cards. I've also brought out a bit of solid cardstock that I'm going to use for my card bases, and then I went through the paper pad and I've picked out some of the papers that I want to use for my cards. And so I'm going to start out first with this piece of decorative paper, and I love the image on the front, so I want to not cover up the image on this one. So we're going to keep this one very simple. We're not even going to decorate the front of the card. We're going to use the paper as the decoration. So I'm going to go ahead with my first piece of black cardstock. I'm going to put the 11-inch side into the top of my paper trimmer, and I'm going to cut it down to 5.5 so that I'm creating an A2 size card. So then I'm going to fold that piece in half for my card base. So now if you already have card bases, you do not have to do this part. I wanted to leave it in the video in case there is a beginner who's wanting to follow along with me. I want you to be able to create these cards no matter what level of crafter that you are. So we're going to take the card base where we folded it, and we're going to open it back up, and we're going to take the fold line and put it on the cut line of our paper trimmer. And then we're going to take and line up the right hand bottom corner in the paper trimmer as well, and we're just going to cut down the center of the front of our card, and we're going to cut a little triangle out. Then I'm going to take my decorative paper and I'm going to cut it to 4 by 5.25. And for this one, I'm also going to just lay it in my paper trimmer, and I'm going to cut from the left hand upper corner to the bottom right hand corner to create my triangles that fit on the front of my card. Now for all of the cards today, I'm going to be using A2 size card fronts, which is typically your 4 by 5.25. So in case I forget to mention that later on, most of the card fronts will be that size today. So then you're going to take one of the triangles and add to the bottom, and then the top triangle to the top. And what I really like about this card is we cut into it, but we still have the entire image when we glue it down. Now I'm not going to add a sentiment to the front of this card as well, because today I'm just creating these cards for fun. I don't have anybody in mind that I'm creating this card for, so I want to wait until I know who I'm creating it for to add a sentiment to it. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to go ahead and cut a piece of cream colored cardstock to 5.5 by 8.5 again, and then I'm just going to cut off 4 by 5.25, and then I'm just going to cut that down the middle from corner to corner so that I have a triangle that I can add to the inside of my card, and this is where I'll stamp my sentiment or write a message to the recipient. And there is our completed card. It's very simple, but I thought it turned out very pretty. So now I'm going to create the next card, but first I want to decide on which teacup that I want to use on the front of this card. I think all of them look good with this paper, so I can't go wrong with whichever one I choose. I'm putting another piece of cardstock into my paper trimmer with the 11-inch side to the top, and I'm going to cut it at 5.5 again. I'm creating another A2 size card just like the one before, and we're just going to fold it in half. Now if you have thicker cardstock, some cardstock seems to require being scored so that it doesn't, so that it folds better and doesn't wrinkle up. So if your cardstock needs scoring, you'll just score this in half. And I'm just going to do the same cut again. I'm going to put this one in my paper trimmer, and I'm going to cut it like we did the one before. Now not all of the cards will have the exact same cut, so just in case you think that it's going to be the same throughout the video, they're not all going to have the exact same cut, so stick around to see how I create the rest of them. But I just wanted to show you another option for this card. So we're doing everything the same just like we did the one before, but we're just going to add a little bit more to this one. So once I have my decorative paper and my cream color cardstock added to this one, I'm now coming back and I'm cutting off a strip that measures 3 by 6 that matches my card base. It's in navy. And then I'm just going to fold this in half, so we're creating a little 3 by 3 card. And for this one, I want to have it be a top folding card. So I want to make sure when I add my teacup that I add it in the right orientation. I add it so that the teacup is facing up towards the top there. So I'm just going to add the teacup to the top of my 3x3 card. And for this one, you want to pay attention when you do add this 3x3 card to the front of your card base. You want to pay attention here and center it from side to side. So I was crafting, wasn't thinking ahead. I'm just creating these really on the fly. I didn't have any instructions. I just had an idea of what I wanted to create today. So when I went to add this one, I wasn't really putting all the thought into it. And so I set it down before I even paid attention. But I really got lucky because I did get this one centered up from side to side. Now you will not be able to center it from top to bottom, since the angle cut is going to block your card from being moved down, but be sure to center it from side to side. So I wanted to mention that because I was not thinking in advance, and so just in case you're following along, I want your cards to turn out beautiful. I don't want you to make the mistake that I did, which I did get lucky that time. So I am adding a piece of cream colored cardstock to the inside of my 3x3 so I have somewhere to put the sentiment. So now for the next card, we're going to put our paper in our paper trimmer, the 8.5 inch side to the top of our paper trimmer, and then we're going to trim it in half at 4 1/4. And we're just going to fold this one in half again. So now this one is going to be a top folding A2 size card. But before I cut anything on it, I want to do a little bit of measuring, and I want to measure it from the top fold down 3/4 of an inch, and I'm just going to put a little marking there. And then I'm going to put that in my paper trimmer, and this time I'm going to put that 3/4 inch mark at the top, and then I'm going to cut down to the bottom right hand corner. So we're cutting another little triangle out, but this time we're leaving a little bit of an edge and then our slant cut. And once again, I'm just going to cut a piece of decorative paper that measures 4 by 5 1/4. But before we cut a slit in this piece of paper, we need to do a bit more measuring again. So I like to cut my paper just a little bit smaller so that the solid cardstock frames it out. So we need to do the same thing when we're doing our little cut at the top. So I want to measure this one again, and I want to mark at a 1/2 inch. So we're just going about 1/4 of an inch smaller around the edges, so then I need to do the same thing for this cut. So then once I have it marked, I'm just going to put that in my paper trimmer, and I'm going to cut at the 1/2 inch mark down to the corner of my paper. And then once again, we're just going to add this to our card base. But before I do that, I do want to erase the pencil marks that I have on my paper. So this piece should fit perfectly now. And I really love that little edge before you get to the slanted cut. I think it adds something to this card, and I see more of these cards in my future. I've never created one of these until this card. I really think it makes it special just to have that little bit of a line. I'm not sure why, but I think it really adds to the card. So I think this is my favorite card of all the cards I've created. But then you'll see in the end, there's another one that's my favorite as well. So I have several favorites in this set. Okay, so for the white cardstock that I'm going to add to the center, that I'm going to add my notes or my sentiment to, this one I cut exactly the same, measuring down a 1/2 inch, just like we did for the front decorative paper. So if you do that, that should fit perfectly inside here with your decorative paper, and just pay attention lining all of your edges up. And so really it's that simple, but I think that you have a fun card in just one little simple cut. Now I do want to decorate this one up, so I'm going to bring in this teacup, and I'm just going to add it to the front. And you'll see here, you just need to add glue to one side of your teacup so that you don't glue your card shut. I struggled. This was one of the days I was struggling. I struggled. You can see I keep trying over and over, but I struggle to figure out where to put the glue. But eventually I do figure it out, and I think this card turned out beautiful. I love creating little special cards like this that doesn't take a lot of measurement and a lot of work, but it really has a little pop to it when you get done. Okay, so we're going to take the other half of that cardstock where we cut our card base out of, and we're going to fold it in half again, but this time we're going to create a landscape card. So what I wanted to do is I'm just going to put it in my paper trimmer like I've been doing all of the other ones. I'm going to cut from the fold line at the top on the right hand side down towards the left hand side this time. So this time we're cutting from the right hand side top to the left hand side bottom corner. And so for our piece of paper we're going to do the same thing, but what you want to do is when you cut this piece of paper out, you want to pay attention to it and you want to cut it long ways versus up and down. That way your paper is running the right direction when you add it to your card front. So using this navy cardstock, I really have been struggling with that triangle laying against the back to see where my pieces go. So one easy way to figure that out is just to open your card up and add your triangle to the front that way. And it does make it a lot easier to line everything up. Now here's when I start to struggle. I go to add this one to the inside of my card, but I do not get it lined up correctly the first time. So I'm going to just go ahead. I try to move it, but it will not move. So I go ahead and pull it off and I try again, but I ripped my paper here. So what I was going to do was leave the inside navy there for this one, since that wasn't going to be where we needed our sentiment anyway. So if you want to try that with yours, you can. But for me, I'm just going to bring in a piece of white cardstock to cover up that torn piece. And so once again, I have another 3x3 card that I've created, just cutting the 3x6 like we did before and folding it in half. And then I'm adding a teacup to the front of it. And you can see here, I'm just going to use some white cardstock to cover up that torn piece on the inside. But then when I fold my card closed, you can see a little bit of that white cardstock is showing. This card did not want to cooperate today. No matter what I did, it seemed like everything was going wrong with it. But this paper is so pretty, I did not want to throw it away. So I'm just going to try to fix it by refolding the card a little bit. So I'm going to take that bottom right hand corner and I'm just going to fold it up towards a little higher up than it's supposed to be. And I don't think anybody will ever notice unless you've watched this video. So if they receive this card, they'll have no idea. But if they watch this video, then they'll know. So I'm just going to fix it that way because I really did not want to throw it away. And so then I'm just going to add the 3x3 card to the center, and I'm just going to center it up from side to side. And I do want to make sure that I have room when I glue it down for my triangle flap to close. So these cards are really fun that they have. I think it's fun that you have two openings. You open one and then you have to open the other one up. So I think that's a fun idea for a card. And it's very similar to the card I created in Fun Fold Friday last week, in that one had straight edges, but it had one of these little cards on it that you opened and then opened another flap. So it's a lot of fun, I think. So I really love how this one turned out. Even though it gave me all of this trouble, I do like how it looks, and I think that it turned out pretty. And honestly, I don't think anyone will know all the mistakes I made. But wait a minute, I forgot to share one more mistake. That way you don't make this mistake on yours. So this teacup image here, it was too large for my 3x3, and I wasn't thinking about that rubbing against the card every time you try to open it. So I just fixed that by trimming off the edge so that it lined up with the 3x3. So I'm just sharing all these mistakes, so hopefully you don't make those and you can make your card beautiful. But I do think that it turned out just fine, even with all of the mistakes and corrections that I had to make. So for the last card, I want to create a bookmark to go with this card. And I really love this bird image that's on the front of this paper. So I'm going to just cut around it. Even though I'm wasting some of the paper, I'm going to cut around it so that I can get the bird image onto my bookmark. And I did not realize when I was creating the video that you cannot see the measurements. So I will give you the measurements for the bookmark in the end because I will have to trim it down a little bit more later. So I've also cut out a piece of red cardstock to back my bookmark. And then I'm going to put my red paper in my paper trimmer and I'm going to cut it at 5 1/2. So we're cutting this one quite different. We're not cutting it in half. We're putting the 8.5-inch side to the top of our paper trimmer, and we're cutting it at 5.5 by 11. Then we want to add it to our scoreboard, and we want to score at 4.25 and 8.5. So now we have 3 fold lines that we need to fold on. So the first fold line is our flap, and then the second one is our card. So we just want to fold that in half like you would a card, and then we want to take the flap and fold it backwards. And so then we're going to cut our angle out of the flap. But first I want to do just a little bit of measuring. So I want to measure about 2 inches from the bottom of our flap. And I'm just going to mark that. And I'm marking that with my little scoring tool, because I just need to know where 2 inches is. And then I'm going to put that in my paper trimmer. I'm going to trim from the fold line of our flap down to that 2-inch mark to get our angle in this card. And this is going to be the pocket that holds our bookmark. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut my decorative paper for this one. And so for the first piece, we're just going to cut it just like we do for any A2 size card. We're going to cut it at 4 by 5.25 for the front of the card. And then for the pocket, I have the rest of the paper left over from where I cut my bookmark. So I'm going to use that because it's the perfect size for the pocket. So I'm going to trim it down to the right height, but then I need to measure, before I cut my angle, I need to measure at 1 3/4 from the bottom of this paper. And then I'll cut my angle from that 1 3/4 mark to the top corner. Once again, I like to have my decorative paper just a little smaller so it can be framed out. Now when I went to dry fit it, I realized that I forgot to cut the width. So the width of my pocket is 2.5. So what I need to do, I need to cut my decorative paper to 2 inches wide. And then I'm just going to add that to the front of my pocket. And I just dry fit everything to make sure everything looks right together. Since this is 2 different papers that we're putting together, I wanted to make sure that they look good together. And I do think they look really good together. So now I'm just going to glue everything down. Before I glue my bookmark though, I want to glue my pocket, because once you add that glue to your pocket, it's going to make it a little shorter. So I want to make sure that I have my bookmark sitting in the right place when I add it to the front of the card. Even though it's just a gift with the card, I want it to look good on the card. So I'm just going to glue my pocket shut by just gluing 2 sides, or one of the sides and then the bottom. And then I'm going to test my bookmark out to see how it fits in the pocket. So when I add it to the pocket, the bookmark falls at the very top of the card, and I don't really like that idea. So I'm going to trim it down just a little bit more. What I want it to do is I want it to fall at the top of the decorative paper. So I'm just going to trim just a little off. So I'm going to trim it to 5 1/8 of an inch. So that means I'll need to trim and it is 2 inches wide. And then I need to trim my decorative paper, the bird paper, down to 5 inches so that it fits on the card perfectly. And it's framed out by the red card. And the decorative paper measures 5 by 1 7/8. So I'm just leaving a 1/16 of an inch around the bookmark to frame it out. I'm not leaving as much as I did for the cards. So now I just want to add some ribbon to the top of my bookmark. Now you have many options for this. I'm just going to staple mine to the top, but you could add an eyelet and add some ribbon. You could just punch a hole and add some ribbon. I originally was going to do the eyelet, but then when I looked in my drawer for what ribbon I was going to use, I found this ruffled ribbon, and so I thought it looks perfect stapled on. It doesn't look as good when you add it to an eyelet. I don't believe this one does anyways, but some of the thinner ribbon I think looks really good with an eyelet. So it's really depending on what you're using for the ribbon. And you could just use some twine. You could use anything for the top. So I love how that looks. So now I'm just going to add that to the pocket of my card. But this card needs a little bit something more. There's no decoration on it. So I'm going to wait to add a sentiment since I'm not really sure what I'm going to use this card for. So I'm just going to add another one of the teacups to the front of the card, and I think that looks really pretty on there. And then I'll also add a piece of cream color cardstock to the inside of my card, but I'm not going to glue it down today because I'm not really sure about the sentiment. So I'm just going to wait until I add the sentiment to it, or I write the note and then I'll glue it down. So I have really enjoyed creating this set of cards, and I hope that you have enjoyed seeing me create them. I hope it inspires you to get out your paper and create these this weekend as well. So here is all of the completed cards. I love them all. I do have a couple of favorites, but I love the simplicity of this one, but how beautiful the front is from the paper. And then here's the one that gave us so much trouble. So I'm not doing these in order, showing them to you, but this is the one that gave me so much trouble. And so I do still love it. I think it turned out very pretty, and I'm glad that I was able to fix all the mistakes. And this has got to be my favorite one. I do not know why, but I love that little edge there. It just adds a little something to it. And then I like this one as well. I think it turned out really good. And then the bookmark one, I think, is my other favorite one. I just actually love that bookmark with the bird on the front. And I love the concept of adding the pocket to the card. Well, thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you will go check out my other Fun Fold videos. I'll put a link to the playlist in my description.